All right, divisional round matchup, and I wanted to start off talking about the game that we're all, I think, really pumped up to watch if you're a neutral fan or if you're a fan of one of these two teams. Ravens, Bills, the first team All-Pro and second team All-Pro quarterbacks playing against each other. It should be a great game. In this video, I'm going to go through a lot of numbers, kind of talk about the matchup from that perspective. We're then going to get into some film to try to get some context for those numbers. We're going to watch some film from their Week 4 matchup, which, we'll talk about it, but how much do you want to even take into account there from that game? And then finally, at the end of this video, I'm going to give my prediction for how I think the Ravens offense will do. That's all we're talking about in today's video, is the Ravens offense against the Bills defense. I will have another video uploaded tomorrow where I talk about the other side of the ball. In that video, I'll give my final score prediction as well. So yeah, a lot to get into, so let's just get into it. So first, let's use some PFF grades to familiarize ourselves with these teams. Again, some people really enjoy these charts. Some people hate PFF and don't want to even look at it. I'm going to include it. You can feel free to disagree. You're allowed to have an opinion that's different from what this video suggests. But what you see on the screen is the Ravens, a lot of good stuff. The Bills, not a lot of good stuff. I mean, Ravens have the second best passing, second best receiving, seventh best pass blocking, going up against the 31st coverage unit according to PFF, and sixth ranked pass rush according to PFF. The Bills, the run defense is weird, where their actual numbers are pretty good, but PFF hasn't been crazy about how they've actually played on an individual basis. So that's interesting to me. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Maybe they play a lot of zone coverage. They put more of an effort schematically in stopping the run, but maybe the talent isn't fully there. I don't know. The Ravens actually don't run block great. According to PFF, they have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, so that gives them the first ranked rushing attack. So a lot of good stuff here for Baltimore. PFF isn't crazy about the Bills. We'll talk about some issues that they have had this season, but also some good parts that they've had this season. I wanted to go over here. Lamar Jackson, these are his numbers when he's blitzed and when he's not blitzed. They're great either way, but he's especially good when he is not blitzed. 124 is his passer rating when he isn't blitzed. His PFF grade is 94.1. I mean, it's pretty much unstoppable if you do not apply pressure. The Bills don't apply pressure. They blitz fifth least in football this season. I mean, that's just... that's something you look at and say, that could be an issue. If you sit back and let Lamar come at you, you're going to pay the price. Heading over here, as I said, the Bills, they like to play their zone coverage. It's not all they do, but it's a lot of what they do. And you see right here that the Ravens just have so many players who can be effective against zone coverage. So Zay Flowers is still a question mark. Is he going to be out there? You have to think that if he can play, he will play, given the importance of this game. But you see, I have to explain the chart if this is your first video you're watching of what these previews. I took the Ravens key receivers and put how they play against man coverage and zone coverage on the screen. The two stats are PFF grade and then yards per route ran. So you see Zay Flowers, he's their best guy. But against zone coverage, there are other players who can come through. Mark Andrews has over 2 yards per route ran against zone. Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, and Nelson Aguilar, and even Justice Hill are all over 1.4 yards per route ran. So they all are effective, and that's what you look at. Obviously, losing Flowers would hurt. He's a real important piece for this team. But let's just be honest. In this game, the running game is going to matter, much like it did last time. You look at their rushing statistics back in Week 4, Derrick Henry had only 199 yards. What, you can't even get 200 yards here, Derrick Henry? Yeah, he had a huge day. Lamar Jackson also had 54 rushing yards. Both of them had a touchdown. Even Justice Hill on his 4 carries still had 18 yards, so which is still only like half of what Henry and Jackson were getting, so shows how good those two players are. I mean, that's the issue. That's what you have to pay attention to. The passing for Baltimore was very good. They didn't do it a lot. They only passed 18 times, but Lamar Jackson had 156 yards on those 18 attempts and a pair of touchdowns as well. You see Justice Hill was by far the leading receiver. In fact, Zay Flowers only had 1 catch for 10 yards last time they played. So, against the Steelers, one of the interesting things was Flowers was kind of someone who killed the Steelers in the regular season, and then it's like, is he going to, will that loss hurt them? Here, at least you can say, hey, we didn't really need him last time we played. But again, you would like him, of course. Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman both had a one catch each, but they were significant catches. Let's get into some film now. Let's talk about, what can happen from here. So I want to start off here. Again, we're going to use film from the first time these two teams played. Obviously, there's a lot of differences between what those teams were then and what those teams are now. Like I said, it was week 4. Going into this game, we were wondering, should the Bills be Super Bowl favorites as they started off 3-0 and the Ravens were 1-2. We're like, what's wrong with them? Well, they got right in a hurry, starting off with this, I believe this is the first play from scrimmage for them. It's going to be a handoff, and you can't block everybody, right? You see who they're blocking. Those two Bills players are going to be the unblocked players who could potentially run over and make a tackle on Henry. Lamar Jackson takes the snap. He's going to give the ball to Henry, and couple things to note: the two unblocked players are still the guys who could potentially get to Henry. That's what you're looking at right here. So you're going to have to figure something out. You're going to have to make sure that you are able to at least tackle him in these situations. It's already going to be a good run, but at least don't make it a devastating run. But it turns into a devastating run. That was Rasul Douglas who really took the bad angle, and you just can't have that. I mean, defensive backs are going to have to tackle. Don't worry, your computer screen isn't broken. I had to pause it for copyright reasons. But you see Henry's going to just run all the way for a touchdown. And, I mean, that helped out the yards per carry and all that stuff, right? Getting that long touchdown. But that's something you look at and say, like, that just can't happen. You can't be giving up those long touchdowns to Derrick Henry. Sure, he's going to get his touches. He's going to find ways to make things happen, but you can't let it go that crazy. This play is also what makes this Ravens running game so difficult to stop. You see Lamar Jackson is going to kind of fake as though he's going to go towards the top of the screen, but is going to give the ball to Henry, who's going towards the bottom of the screen. So watch those two Buffalo players. Watch what they're going to do on this play. Lamar gives the ball to Henry, but they both move closer in towards the middle of the field. So now there's a window for Henry to run towards the bottom of the screen, right? There's a lot of room, and this is just the threat of having Lamar run. It's part of how, someone like Gus Edwards averaged over 5 yards per carry in his time in Baltimore, and it's how Derrick Henry is able to just go off, really. Watch as when he has that much space, he's able to really just make it a, kind of an easy 25, 30-yard gain just like that. And again, it's so difficult to stop these, and you almost just assume that some of those are going to happen. So that's something I really find interesting about this game compared to last week against the Denver Broncos. Because the other thing the Ravens did in this game was something like this, where it's going to be a 2nd down and 7 situation. The Bills are playing their zone coverage, 2nd and 7, so I wouldn't say it's an obvious passing or running situation, but it's certainly not like the full playbook is open. You would think you probably want to pass it here. But you see what they're going to do is they're going to just scheme up this, halfback screen. Justice Hill takes it, and they pick up the first down. As I mentioned, Hill was the leading receiver in this game. It was a lot of screen passes like this. Now, I make the comparison to last week because last week I thought Denver could be able to scheme this up, make these kind of plays happen. The issue is they didn't run the ball, and when they didn't run the ball, Buffalo didn't really have to stay in one coverage. They were allowed to mix. They were able to kind of mix things up, and they were able to ultimately beat the Broncos because the Broncos just, they couldn't run these types of concepts because it was 3rd and 9 every time they were throwing it. With the Ravens running the ball, as I said, 31st ranked coverage according to PFF, you can get these zone busters to work if you can run the ball, and you have to assume they're going to run the ball, and that's what's concerning if you're a Bills fan. Because it also works in plays like this, where this is going to be a zone coverage concept, and you see really the route you want to look towards is that route, right? Because the deep route, pushing the cornerback, there's the cornerback back, I guess I should say. Henry's route going underneath is just to keep the defensive player, who's in that area further in. That middle route usually is the one that gets open. However, here, when Lamar Jackson takes the snap, this isn't open. This is just not even competitive. Buffalo's going to have to cover better the next time these two teams play each other. And again, it's week 4, right? They're not fully on the same page. Even look at the scoreboard. They have, I think the clock operator, something got messed up. So they have to use the scoreboard in the stadium to make this happen. It's not going well, right? You're still getting used to things. And that's the biggest hope if you're a Bills fan. It's yeah, we made these mistakes early on. Hopefully we got better. But did they get better, though? In some games, yes. Against Denver, yes. But, you had those games against the Rams, against the Lions, who are, Lions are an awesome team. Rams are a good team. Like, you can't be making these mistakes against Baltimore or, your season's going to be over. Although now I want to go over here, because I've been very critical of the Bills in this video, the Bills defense in this video, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning, this game wasn't really, the last time they played, the wire-to-wire blowout people make it out to be. Yes, this was ultimately a 35-10 game. Okay, that's pretty good. You'll take that. But if you remember, in the third quarter, this became a game again. At this point, it was an 11-point game. The Bills had scored a touchdown. The Ravens are in a 3rd down and 11 because the Bills did get some stops on 1st and 2nd down. And if you can get the Ravens into obvious passing situations, this is where the Bills have a chance. They're going to play man coverage across the board, and they're going to cover well. Watch as when Lamar Jackson takes the snap, he's going to navigate this pocket, but there's nothing open. And this is what you need to do if you're Buffalo. If you can get to obvious passing situations, you can cover, because the Ravens, while the receiving core has been good this year, I still don't think they have a Justin Jefferson necessarily, especially if Zay Flowers doesn't play. And the Bills can rush the passer well, so you have to be careful to not let Lamar outside the pocket. But as you see here, they had a linebacker who was, almost half playing a spy right there, making sure he's paying attention to Lamar, doesn't let Lamar rush. And because of that, they are able to get the stop right there. The Bills got the ball back, and then ultimately they ran a trick play fumble. And if they didn't do that, they probably would have made it a 1-score game midway through the third quarter. So, listen, and then the Ravens took over. The Ravens were the better team in that game. I'm just saying there were some opportunities. Of course, it's worth mentioning, even if you get the secondary covered, like Lamar can still make things happen, of course. So there's no guarantee regardless, but that's what you want to have happen. I actually kind of like the Bills if they can just get some stops on 1st down. And here's the other thing is, the Bills' offense didn't do much against Baltimore last week. If they don't do much again, then you're losing. It is what it is. So, assuming you can get some points, then maybe the mindset is we don't have to stop them every possession. We just have to stop them sometimes. We just have to stop them enough. We have to get enough of these 1st down stops. And if the Ravens don't get those big rushes, well, maybe they have to run 12 plays to get a touchdown instead of 1, right? And so if you can do that, you can have more opportunities to just get them to a 3rd and 7 where you have a chance. So I'm not sitting here and saying that the Ravens are just guaranteed to dominate this Bills defense. However, as we get into final predictions, it's hard to not bet on a good offensive day for Baltimore. So the Ravens average 2.86 points per drive on offense. Offensive points per drive is 2.86. That's 3rd best in football behind Buffalo and Detroit. The Bills' defensive points per drive is not very good at all, 2.09 points per drive. It's not a disaster, but it's not good. The first time these two teams played, the Ravens had 3.5 points per drive, but keep in mind, Lamar only played 8 of the 10 possessions, so they had the backups in twice, and they didn't score, and then there was also a fumble in there. If you take those 3 possessions out, which isn't really fair to do, but if you do that, that's 5 points per drive. So this Ravens team, they got stopped a couple times. They were really dominant in this game. So my guess is, I don't think it'll be quite that again. I'm going to go 3.2. I don't think the Bills will do as bad of a job of giving up those long rushes, right? And those just easy explosives. I think they'll be better at protecting that. But there's just no getting around it. It's a good matchup for Baltimore. It just is. I mean, that's kind of why it's always so difficult when you talk about teams that have played each other previously, right? Because on one hand, sometimes you see, I as a Tampa Bay fan, I view things through that lens. When the Buccaneers lost twice to the Saints in the regular season, got crushed the second time 38-3, and then beat the Saints in the playoffs, sometimes that happens, right? Where it turns out that it was just some bad games. Or sometimes the opposite happens, where Jacksonville and Pittsburgh played each other in the regular season. Pittsburgh looked horrible. Jacksonville crushed them, and it was like, okay, was that just a weird game? And then they played each other in the playoffs, and it wasn't. Jacksonville crushed Pittsburgh again. So, that was on one of Big Ben's last years. Sometimes that happens. So it's hard to say exactly how much it matters. I think it matters in this game. I think it'll be different. I do think it'll be different. And I actually think it'll be a lot more different on the other side of the ball. So that's kind of the way I view this Bills team is if the Bills are winning this game through defense, I'm just way off about how I think this game is going to go. I think if the Bills win this game, it's going to be because of their MVP candidate, Josh Allen. So we'll talk about him on the next video. Can the Bills score enough to keep up with the Ravens this time? Because they weren't able to do that last time. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.